You're very welcome to Competent Women Island's YouTube channel with me, Roisin Nicleric. Many of our viewers and listeners will be aware that I have a real big passion for women in the midlife and our health and well-being, and especially relating to the area and chapters, phases and stages of our lives is menopause. It's one of my favorite topics. I began discussing the menopause back in 2018 on my local woman to woman radio shows. GPs here in Ireland are putting out calls for urgent research into menopause in the women with intellectual difficulties. My guest for this video is Dr. Deirdre Forde, who has a medical centre in Athlone, has a dedicated menopause clinic, who says the issues of women with intellectual difficulties and menopause is the one that is largely going unnoticed, unchecked and unreported. Dr. Forde says she became alerted to this issue when professionals caring for women with intellectual disabilities brought some women in to see her for a potential diagnosis and then a bespoke treatment. The women's carers are fantastic. They are so well attuned to their needs and they notice when things are amiss. They are really a lifeline for women. They are their voice. Deirdre Forde, you are very welcome to the Woman to Woman show here on Confident Women Ireland. And my apologies for my phone going off. So, Dr. Deirdre Forde, before we get into the conversation of menopause, would you like to just introduce yourself to the audience of Confident Women Ireland, who you are, what you do, and how, as a doctor and a GP, you got into the menopause space?
Hi, Roisin. Lovely to be here, I have to say. So I am a general practitioner. Prior to becoming a general practitioner, I worked for about 30 years in public health and community health, and I dealt a lot with different communities, including women with intellectual disabilities. So I have a very, I suppose, holistic approach really to health because I've dealt with so many different areas while I worked in public and community health. I retired from that when I was 55, went back into general practice. And I then became so interested in menopause because it was something that personally affected me at a very early age. I started my menopause at 38 and I was postmenopausal at 47 when menopause wasn't even discussed and I didn't know what was going on with me, and certainly my GP didn't know what was going on with me. Anyway, I decided then that this is the road I wanted to go. And in 2019, I opened up Céile Medical in Athlone and I became a British Menopause Society accredited specialist. And that is what I do now full time. I've ditched the general practice, but obviously, in saying that, if a woman comes to me with other issues that I can treat on the day, obviously I will treat that. But my passion now is menopause. The women with intellectual disabilities, as you said there, Roisin, um, I was treating a lot of women who were carers of women with intellectual disabilities. They were coming to me because they were themselves having issues. And it was after talking to me that they would go back and they would suddenly notice that the women that they were caring for were displaying similar symptoms. And most of these women are nonverbal. So they would see the women rocking back and forth. They would see the crying, incessant crying, the behavior now, which is becoming more disturbing, more erratic, head banging, um, maybe becoming more violent, maybe destructive. And then they thought, this is possibly menopause. They're in the age bracket, so this is possibly menopause. So one or two of the women rang me. They said, would it be possible? And I said, absolutely, anything is possible. If she has a uterus, it doesn't matter whether she's verbal or non-verbal. Her mood is going to change. She's going to display irrational behavior. She's going to sweat profusely and she's going to cry an awful lot. And I said, bring her down to see me. So that was the start of it. And I now have about 25 women that I treat all the time who come to see me. And in fact, Roisin, one very interesting lady that I saw, she was so bad that she was in a house with sheltered housing with two other women. She had to be housed by herself. The HSE had to get her a house by herself with full-time carers because she was so disruptive and violent and, punching holes in the wall and that. I saw her consult, and she now is a lamb. She is the most placid individual ever. Her consultant psychiatrist is so happy with her that he's taken her off a lot of her medication.
Wow, that's lovely.
Yeah,
Isn't that that make me cry? That is lovely. All she wanted was someone because she was nonverbal. She didn't know how to express what she was feeling within her body, and she came to you who knew exactly what was happening to her. That is like you're like her guardian angel.
oh,
Oh,
it
that
was
make
so
me cry.
lovely. It was so lovely. And it was so, like, I've had maybe a few other consultant psychiatrists now who said, maybe you should see Dr. Ford. She might be able to see, is there something else going on? And it's working so well. It's working so well. All they need are their hormones.
And all they needed was someone to understand what was going on through their body and understand what they were trying to communicate and know. And when is this happening to you? Yes. And nonverbal, I don't know an awful lot, but as a coach, I would say nonverbal people would actually have their ways of communicating and acknowledging in different ways. And it's about
Yes.
getting that communication right and that rapport and trust right. And
Hmm.
no, I suppose that lady must have went away going, I know I'm not going mad.
Yes, in her own mind now,
Yeah.
she knows now that she's not going
That
mad.
sounds awful. I didn't mean to say, but I
But
remember
yeah,
I used to think, I remember when I was talking on the radio about menopause, I remember speaking to Breeder Birmingham going, oh, Breeder, at least now I know I'm not going mad. I thought we all thought we were going mad. You know, the brain fog, the weight gain, the mood swings, the low moods. And if someone is nonverbal, they don't know how to communicate that they're having no moods and they don't know why their body is feeling the way
is
it
feeling
is.
the way it is. And I suppose it was wonderful too that now the carers of these women are now educating each other, like they are now talking amongst themselves about menopause and the impact of menopause on them, and they themselves recognizing symptoms so that if they feel they need to have treatment, that they'll come to me, but they'll also recognize it then in the women that they're caring for. So
Yes.
it's wonderful, it's getting out there. They're doing it themselves. They're their own sort of education and word of mouth and that, and becoming more and more aware of it. And I think a lot of the GPs, certainly now, because I would do the scripts for the women, and then because they all have medical cards, though the GP will put it on their medical card, and the GPs are totally open now when they see that there's changes there.
Yes, because years ago, my mother was quite open about her menopause. She said, "Oh, they called it the change,
Yeah.
back then, the change." My mother had a bad enough one, but there was other women that really suffered. You know, my mom was, yeah. When I thinking back, it was her low moods more than anything else, and she probably didn't know that that just went along. But then I noticed then with me. I remember, I started talking about the menopause on the radio show, and my whole body, the weight gain, the itch, that skin itch. Over on the table, you'll see one of my best investments was the back scratcher.
Oh,
you know,
yes, yes. Every
the
woman
back
should have one
scratcher
of
on the
them.
table. There wasn't one here.
Yes, yes, yes.
The
The back
back
scratcher.
scratcher, the back scratcher was for me and the fan. Like they were the most, and I still use them. Do you know? But and then you think about the low moods, and then the menopause rage as well. But once we understood what it is, we go, it's the menopause.
Yeah. I spoke to a couple once when I worked in the menopause hub in Dublin, and I always encourage the partners, whether it's a male or a female partner, it doesn't matter, to maybe sit in on the consultation too. So this man sat in with this lady, and he sat away from her, and I sat back while this to and fro was going on. And I said, okay, I'll let them settle down now for a minute, because you could see the rage in her.
Yeah.
And I said to him, how bad is her rage? And he said, it's like this. If she stopped at a traffic light, she's likely to get out of the car and pull the person through the front window of the car in front of her. That's how bad her rage is. So I said, okay. So, but after, when I did the review with them then, and I said, after 3 months, I said, how's the rage? And he said, well, I have to tell you, Dr. Forde, I got my wife back after a week.
Wow.
It all
Exactly.
started to calm down, calm down.
I remember too being told, and I say you're doing this as well with your patients. Don't worry, your body will rise. I was flooded. I had fluid, and my ankles were like that. I was flooded. My whole body was just flooded, and I was told. Breeder said to me, Roisin, don't worry, your body will rightify itself. That to me was a lifeline.
Yeah.
Yes, I have the weight gain. Now I'm at the gym doing gentle exercise. I'm not hitting the treadmill running. I'm doing gentle exercises, movement.
Yes. Movement. And it is so important, the movement for your joints, the movement for toning up to prevent sarcopenia, which is loss of muscle mass, to prevent and help with your bone strength. I do the gym now twice a week, and I do the rowing machine, and I don't do a treadmill, but I do weights.
Yes,
Weights are so important. But on top of that too, Roisin, the benefits of it. I mean, I was never one for gym. I'd say I didn't
neither
grow
did
up in
I.
an era. I didn't grow up in an era of a gym.
No,
Like I grew up in the 60s, and you were given a hockey stick or a camogie
yes,
stick, and most of our hockey sticks and camogie sticks were burnt in the fire to boil a kettle, because I couldn't be bothered. We weren't into sport. We weren't into anything like that. Certainly a gym was never heard of. But now I swear it's the best thing that I ever did, because
yes,
I go early in the morning and my endorphins are built up, and the feel
yes.
good factor is great. Your energy is so good. So, women out there, you're never too old to go to the gym. I'm nearly 64. I started when I was 62, going to the gym. Best thing I ever did.
I only started 2 years ago. I'm 56. I'll be
Mm,
57 now next week. So I only started 2 years ago. No, actually, I would say a year ago. Yeah, a year ago. And when I go there, I probably procrastinate. And I probably say, oh, I'm hungry. That's my procrastination. I'm always super hungry just before I go to the gym. And I need another cup of coffee, or I'm starving. But once I get there, wow. And I get in there, I come out a different woman.
yeah,
I
you
really
do.
come out. And I have more energy. As they
Yeah,
say, energy cells produce more energy cells.
yeah, yeah.
My
More energy.
mood is lifted.
Yeah.
I come out creative and loving the world.
Loving the world and wanting maybe to go for a walk, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, rather than doing anything else. Yeah, it's
So,
great, I have to say. Exercise.
so also you say, an awful lot of women who are living with, going through their midlife, living with intellectual difficulties, they must feel very traumatized when they don't know what is going in their body, and even not being able to explain it. And the carers, as you said, know that they are excellent. They know the client's needs, and they understand. So they're very aware if there's changes with
Yes.
the clients. So tell us, more about maybe the frustrations, and maybe how women maybe are behaving, thinking, and feeling, who cannot verbally communicate what's going on with them.
So what the carer typically would notice is that their sleep pattern is off, that they may not be sleeping now at nighttime. that they might be getting up to have a chat with the nighttime carer and they're pacing up and down. So lack of sleep at nighttime, or they
Yeah.
might be sleeping an awful lot during the day because they seem to be tired, or they've no motivation, where they might have been up, early at say 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, and now the carer has to go in and take them out of bed at 10 o'clock, and where they would normally maybe go off and do a little bit of, you know, whatever in the garden with the carer, the client or the lady just wants to go back. She'll just be grumpy and she'll just want to go back to
Yeah.
sleep again or go back into bed again. So
Yeah.
it's the sleep, it's the fatigue. They might notice that in the morning when they go to get them up, that they're absolutely saturated from the night sweats. And they may notice too that her periods are all over the place, that, where they would normally know when a period was due, a period didn't come, or she's missed 2 months of a period and now we've got a flood. So there's a change in her cycle. But the crying, the incessant crying, crying for no rocking, literally back and forth, rocking, inconsolable, um, probably very irritable, where they would have been very, very placid before that. Now they're becoming moody and snappy and maybe even violent, towards their carer or to themselves. I had a lady who came to me initially and she had a helmet on because she was self-harming so much. She was banging her head, not even off the wall. She was banging
Oh.
it off the corner of the wall.
Oh.
She was, I mean, her head was completely stitched, head to toe, black eyes. I mean, the first time she came in and I looked at the car and I said, "Oh, what's going on?" Oh, she had another go at the wall this morning. Black. She doesn't wear a helmet anymore. All of that behavior has stopped.
Because, when you think about it, if we didn't know what was going on with us without any intellectual difficulties, you know, our behaviors can be erratic because we don't know what's going on and we don't know. But it's so, as you say, it's a silent group that are going unnoticed
Yeah.
with the women living with disabilities. And it's not acceptable. And you're trying to see change around this and put the floodlights on this for women living with intellectual disabilities, the mothers and the carers. And, it's about giving the women the tools, isn't it? And the skill sets to deal with this.
Yes. And as well as that, most of these women now, obviously, that I see are probably late 40s to maybe, mid 50s. But there's another cohort of all of those women coming up who are already have an intellectual disability, who are in their maybe 20s or 30s, who may still be living at home, who could end up in care homes later on as their parents are getting older. But at least the mothers are probably now, the mothers of these children or adults are probably now in their 50s. At least if they know this is possibly what's going to happen down the road, that at least they know that they can, inform themselves, educate themselves, and know that if they're over time, if they have to, their children have to go into a care home, that they can at least say to the carers, please be aware and look out for her when she's going through menopause.
Because all of us go through that sort of personality change when we go, because that's normal too. It's normal that sort of personality change, and it's only just a small personality change that doesn't last long. And because if we don't understand what's going on with us, we through our thoughts, and that then we have an emotional reaction because we don't know what's going on chemically and biologically within our body.
Mm-hmm.
That affects the behavior. So uh, thoughts affects our emotions, and emotions affects our behavior. So they're really worried about what's going on within their
Yes,
bodies.
yes, 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 absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, it's something that yeah, absolutely needs to be spoken about more, opened up more, and yeah, that's what I plan to do.
And it's just so it gives, because listening to you now, I would imagine that there's a lot of mothers or carers listening to you, or even women with intellectual disabilities listening to you right now. They must be sighing with relief, saying, "Oh, this is what's going on. It's nothing that I'm doing. It's nothing that my daughter or my client's doing. It is just it's not, I won't use that word, just it is a behavior change because they're unaware of what's going in their body." Could you maybe even give our viewers some um sort of self-injury? You mentioned about injuries with the lady banging her head against the wall, the corner of the wall, and came
Mm.
in with a helmet. What other self-injury behaviors would you notice, or maybe the carers or the mothers or family members notice within ladies living with disabilities, intellectual
Oh,
disabilities, be doing?
okay. So a lot of them will start to, they'll start to pick. They'll start to pick at their skin. They'll start to maybe start pulling their hair out. All right, so pulling their, always at their hair. They might start picking at lips, but certainly picking at skin and repeatedly picking scabs that will continue to bleed. They'll start tearing at their legs because their legs will become very itchy too. So
Yes,
scratching, 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 scratching their arms. But to, which is very common anyway in menopausal women, just the whole itch there. But a woman who is nonverbal, intellectual disability will actually start to do some of those self-harming behaviors. Now self-harming, obviously typical, in would be a lot of, cutting and that. They don't do that because they just don't do that, but they will do it some other way. They'll start to pick and pick and pick at scabs and something that will continue to bleed. But so you'll notice the carer or the mum or the siblings of one of these ladies will notice a change in the behavior. Why
yes,
is she doing that? She never did that before. Why is she suddenly maybe leaking or weeing in her? Why is she incontinent when she never had that issue before? Or why does she always seem to be wanting to go to the toilet all the time? She could have a UTI. UTIs are very common,
yes,
in menopausal women. Maybe now she's got, in a lot of the behaviors where maybe she has a temperature because when women who've got intellectual disability and they may be verbal, but they might start to feel unwell, they have a temperature and they become very confused. Maybe they have a UTI associated with menopause, right?
yes,
Maybe they have um, a bit of a stress incontinence, so they're actually leaking and and they don't realize they're leaking. These are
yes.
all
Mm.
symptoms of
Yeah.
estrogen deficiency.
I remember before my postmenopause, my 12 months. I remember, and friends would agree, I used to have to carry a plastic bag. And if I sat down in a car, if someone collected me, I would put a bag down in the seat. And if I went to a cafe or anything or a restaurant, I'd have to sit down on something so I wouldn't leak out onto the chair or
Oh
the car
dear.
seat. I
Oh
was
dear.
that bad.
Oh
And then I
wow.
had it was so bad then that once I had the D&C, I was fine.
Yes, because what was happening there is that the lining of the womb was probably a little bit thick and it was pressing on the bladder.
Oh, that way.
hmm hmm
Wow.
So this is a urinary leak you're talking about.
No, it was blood. It was,
Blood
it,
leak.
yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah. Oh, that can happen too. Oh yeah, that was thickening too. Interesting enough, a woman who is postmenopausal, say, who hasn't had a bleed for a long, long time, and all of a sudden they have really bad pressure, say bladder pressure,
yes.
um, getting up at night time to do, feeling that there's something pressing on you. A lot of those women may have a huge big fibroid that's just grown that
Ooh,
needs to be moved. Yeah, so it's a mechanical thing.
yeah,
If there's something in your uterus which is pressing on, your bladder is just beside it. It can be mechanical, so that can all be sorted out
that can
too.
be sorted out.
Yeah,
It's the
yeah.
body changing. A lot of people talk about it's puberty in reverse. we've had to go we were born, right? So our mothers had, had to have periods to and then give birth. And then uh you've got the birth, and then after everything that happens to a woman after birth. And then our daughters, or our daughters, then go through the puberty. And you think the mood swings, the rolling of the eyes. And what do? We go after they're teenagers, and we roll our eyes and we laugh and go, oh, the mood swings, the darkness under the eyes, the irrational behavior, everything, the tiredness. And we are very compassionate towards teenagers and expectant mums and mums who just have babies. But when we come to our own menopause, we don't give ourselves the compassion that we've given our daughters, or women who are pregnant or just had a baby. And that's something I think we need to give ourselves, that compassion, that understanding. Yes, and I know I breathe with sigh of relief because after menopause, as long as I have my fan, and I do, it was the itch. The itch was really something that really, because you were talking about the lady that earlier on with disabilities and scratching herself and scabs and bleeding. I I was like that with my skin. So I keep cream all around me, around the house. So if I get an itch, I
Yeah.
put cream on,
Yeah.
and drink more water and
Mm-hmm.
change my diet. And I can only think of the relief that women are coming to you who are living with disabilities, intellectual disabilities, or anyone with any kind of disability comes to you, a woman, and she must go, oh my God, I have a doctor who understands exactly what I'm going through, my needs and my wants, personally as well as medically.
Yes.
That is, and that makes me well up as a woman and as a mother, that that is a lifeline. Because as you said, that these women are forgotten about within our society, especially when it comes down to women's health.
Yeah. They are.
And they don't have that the communication skills to verbally communicate, especially if they, as you said, we talk about a urine. I know I go to the toilet. I still get up at 3 times a night to go to the toilet, especially since my perimenopause. Now I just get up and go. But if if a lady is, um, you know, with intellectual disabilities and can't doesn't understand why, probably then wetting themselves because they can't say, oh, I need the toilet. Oh, you've been to the toilet 10 minutes ago, but I need to go again. you know
Yeah.
might that stress within them would cause more stress and then increase their menopause symptoms.
Yes. And anxiety, increase their anxiety then. Yeah, absolutely. So everything is starting to change. And as long as we're aware that everything is starting to change, and if she has just been to the loo and she has an urgency to go again, that's because her estrogen levels are dropping.
And then again, more, so many women talk about this, the weight gain, even
Mm-hmm.
when they're not eating. My children tried to put me on the small fork diet, but it didn't work. And then we
Right.
went and bought plates, with the big square rim, and then the small fork diet, and I went, it's not working. I was still putting on the weight. But anyone living with disabilities, with intellect, that must be very hard for them to communicate to themselves, understand this is why they're putting on weight,
Mm-hmm.
is that it's
Yeah,
hormonal. And
hormonal.
so there's research going on now, and is it coming from the UK about women living with intellectual disabilities and menopause? Is there much research done to date?
Sorry, I missed that bit there, Roisin.
So, is there much research to date for women living with intellectual difficulties and menopause?
No, there's nothing. There's very
Nothing.
little out there. No, no. There was one piece that I found that was done in the UK, and there has been no research done in Ireland. Now there is, I think the university, Technological University in Waterford, there is a PhD student there doing some research on menopause in women with intellectual disabilities. So I've already been in touch with her to try and feed in whatever information that I have so that she can use it as part of her research. So that's probably the main one that's happening in Ireland. But no, there's nothing, there's very little done
When you
on
think
that.
about women's health, and women are 52% of the population,
Yeah.
and when you think about my daughter's a doctor as well. When you think about that, there's so little information even in medical school and medical college and within the universities about women's health, especially menopause.
Yeah. When a lot of like when I was in college, menopause was never mentioned when we did our gynae lectures. No, never mentioned. I think in medical school at the moment now, they probably get 2 hours where
Yeah.
menopause is mentioned. That's it. That's as a medical student. Now I remember just prior to COVID, I was working in the GP practice, and I had a fourth year UCD student who was medical student. So I started talking to her about menopause, and she got so interested in it. She was part of a group of students. She set up a Zoom call where I actually did a full hour with them on menopause. There must have been about 30 students logged on that day where I did menopause to educate them. And they were going to start bringing this forward to their tutors to say this needs to be included on the curriculum.
Wow.
Mm.
I mean, you think women living with any kind of disabilities, and even more so with intellectual disabilities, are the most vulnerable women within society.
Yes,
And
yes.
there isn't medical mandates or structures or policies and procedures put in place for this.
Yeah. Everybody is lumped under the one umbrella, but the women who are always forgotten about are the women with disabilities, intellectual disabilities. They're forgotten about.
So, Dr. Deirdre Forde, what you're doing is you're giving them a lifeline, a voice, and a safe space and place to come and talk about their health, understanding that women have intellectual disabilities, and finding the right communication skills for you to ask the questions and for them to be able to answer the questions, and to build that rapport with women so they know that they are being listened to, heard, and acknowledged. That's powerful. You know, when you think about that what you're giving women is not just a lifeline, but you're giving them a new life.
I would like to think that absolutely that I can do everything and anything I can to make sure that their quality of life does improve.
Well, you know, we're going to keep this conversation going. Anything at all, and we're not going to end this now. There's a couple of things I want to ask about as well, but we're not going to we're not going to stop this conversation here. You know, anytime you would like to have a platform, you give me a call. And also the fact too is, let's get this conversation going with about menopause and women living with intellectual difficulties. Let's make this something that 2024 and 2025 a campaign here now.
Absolutely, I agree totally with you. Yes,
And bring in other menopause experts, and bring in women who have children, young daughters who are living with intellectual disabilities as well. And that will help with the research.
absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
So what would you do is, so, so maybe now if we could just talk about the symptoms. I know everybody says about the symptoms and everything else, but let's talk about the symptoms of menopause, because when I was doing this, and there was about 40, and I looked up at the screen down in Waterford, I have 37 of those. And I remember going, oh my God, I remember what I was wearing. And I went, oh my God, I have 37. I counted 40. And I went, I am not going mad. This is
Yeah.
all to do with the menopause.
Yeah. So I always have my, can't see any names here, but I always have my symptom checkers. I've just seen a lady just before I came on here. But there are so many. These are the ones I use primarily, but there are other ones as well. So let's have a look at, say, the physical ones. So you've got hot flushes.
Yes.
We all know hot flushes is like, women are saying, oh, I don't know, do I get hot flushes or not? It's like when you were a teenager and you fancied that guy across the road and you blushed like hell and your face went red and you were all blotchy and then it all went again. That's a hot flush. Okay. Night sweats, drenching between your boobs. Hair might be wet at the back, but typically between your boobs, you're really wet, and between your legs, you're really, really wet. The exhaustion and the fatigue that you feel, you just want to sleep. You want to go to bed at lunchtime. You want to go to bed at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You want to go to bed at 8 o'clock at night, and then you go to bed and you're wide awake. So you're wide awake now at 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're looking at the clock, it's 3 o'clock. You're still awake at 4 o'clock. Then it's eventually time. You might sleep from 6 to 7, and guess what? You got to get up then, and you're exhausted. So sleep is a huge issue. Weight gain. We all know about going around the middle. That the different shapes that we become, and it's all got to do with being more insulin resistant now. So it's all going to go around the middle. So anything that is a carbohydrate, or a sugar will convert to a carb will convert into all of this fat around the middle. So we've got to, while you have to have a balanced diet of carbohydrate, protein, and your vegetables every meal, make sure to watch the portion of the carb. Okay. You're going to get a lot of perimenopausal women might get a lot of PMS symptoms and bloating. So here we are back to teenage years again. We've got really, really bad crampy periods. Where the hell did all that come from? You had it when you were 15 and 16. You had 30 or 40 years free, and here we are again. So you got bad PMS, bad moods, bad, depression nearly coming up to a period, and bloating. Your hair might start to get thin. You're definitely going to get achy. Your joints are going to ache. Typically, your ankles are going to ache. You get up in the morning and you feel like you're 90 because they won't move. They're stiff in the morning. You might get aches in your wrists. I remember going to doctors, strapped up wrists, strapped knees, strapped elbows, strapped everything because I was so sore. Very, very painful joints because, again, estrogen is a natural anti-inflammatory. So once we get estrogen back into your system again, all your aches and pains will go. The dry skin and the itch, like you said. Headaches are very possible, hormonal headaches. Vaginal dryness. So if everything is drying up, inside is going to start drying up too. And with all of that, you may get itch on the inside or itch on the outside. That will drive you crazy. The urinary incontinence, like I said, leaking. If you cough or sneeze, you'll leak. If you don't get to the toilet in time, that's called an urgent incontinence. You'll leak as soon as you see the toilet. Urinary infections, maybe a bit of body odor. So that's all of that kind of area. And then we look at the brain fog.
Oh,
Oh, the brain fog. I have these little plaques that I bought in America. My train of thought left the station years ago. My, on reception desk. Wait, why am I here again? So
yeah,
this is a menopausal woman coming in and she's looking at us and it's typical. No, I'm at the doctor's. Why am I here today?
yeah.
Oh, it's my menopause day today. You know what I mean? Memory loss, poor concentration. You're in the middle maybe of doing exams. We're at the stage in our 50s, we love to go back to
Oh,
education, that maybe in your early 40s. And there's You keep reading the page over and over again. There's nothing going in. It just won't stay there. The anxiety is like a washing machine. It's like that ongoing churning that just won't stop. You have no reason to be anxious, but this is taking over your life. And you're churning and you're churning. You're trying to walk to get rid of all of that churning, which does help building up the endorphins to get rid of that sensation of the churning in your stomach. As a result, then becoming very overwhelmed, crying for no reason. I remember going through hell and back, crying, crying, crying. I'd go into a supermarket, I'd be crying. I'd come out of the supermarket, I'd be crying. I'd be, I'd be in the mid, I'd be at a dinner party, I'd start crying. Why am
Yes,
I crying? Why am I crying? You're trying to then go to the loo to hide so that people can't see you're crying and you don't know why you're crying. um, not feeling yourself and feeling very depressed. And then, as we said, the mood swings, you know, 0 to 10 in 0.2 seconds, where you'll snap. Um, Loss of libido, huge. Relationships break up over this. Loss of libido. You have no interest in sex anymore. You have, you have, so you start to drift apart, and then it just all goes pear-shaped, you know? And as a result of relationship difficulties, you might have poor workplace functioning, so because you feel you don't have the confidence anymore to do what you used to be able to do, because you got the young ones coming in now and you think, oh God, they know more than I do, and I don't have confidence to do this anymore. And maybe should I just give up work because maybe I'm getting old?
yes.
We've got these crazy thoughts, which mean you're getting old. um, you've got poor self-esteem then, and you've got poor motivation. So when you consider that the average age of menopause, the day you haven't had a period in a year, is 51, we're exposed to live another 30 or 40 years with no hormones. Really? And survive? No, it doesn't work like that.
And this is where what I love about, the menopause space and being, what I do is I work on the confidence and mindset of women go. I don't work on symptoms or anything like that. That's medical and for GPs and doctors like yourself. I just work on the mindset. Once we get the mindset right, then we know that the self-esteem and the self-confidence is only a flip. That
Yes.
we know, and once you get the mind right, you can get the body right.
Yes. Oh gosh, what happened to me there?
And I think that's so important. And I remember you talked about the brain fog. I was on local radio, and I remember interviewing a panel of 4 women, and I still see them right in front of me. We went for the break, and I hit the break, and I came back and says, "You're very welcome back to the Woman to Woman show here on Community Radio with me, Roisin Leclerc." And I looked at, and we're still talking conversation, and I looked at all my 4 guests. I couldn't remember their names, and I couldn't remember the topic.
Oh no!
Live on air.
Oh wow!
So I just said, "Oh, I'm having a menopause brain fog moment." That gave me a moment, and it broke the ice, so there's no dead air. Because I've been talking about menopause, but at least I knew what it was.
Yes, yes, yes.
But I could not remember the topic, their names, what we were talking about live on air. So then the next thing is you talked about the body odor. I'm only now finished. My body odor was like a cat's urine. It was like a cat litter box.
Oh dear.
I carry baby wipes with me in my bag.
Wow.
Perfume. I mean, sometimes I used to put baby wipes under my arms and just walk around with the baby wipes. That's how bad my body odor was. Really, really. You would think I was carrying cat litter, a dirty cat litter box.
Wow.
Yeah. And so the body odor, and I think then when I realized that was a hormonal change and going through my body, I wasn't so paranoid. I knew what it was. And
Yeah.
and then it's just about changing the lifestyle. And I say pause for the menopause. Sometimes just slow down, take breaks out, and just go with the flow. Sometimes once we speak to, you know, menopause experts like yourself and the other women who are in the sphere, Dr. Kira Hartley, Rita Birmingham, now I'm going to forget the ones I mentioned before we came on the wellness warrior, and many, and Lorraine King, Dr. Mary Ryan. You know, I would say, you know, once we talk to you and we know that, you know, we're not going mad, we're not going crazy, we're not losing our minds, our bodies is the normal process of the ending of our bodies being able to in the fertility area of our lives.
That's
And
exactly it.
yeah,
Yes.
and that our bodies will ratify itself. And that through this now, we have to get that message out to women living with intellectual disabilities or any form of disabilities. And this is why this interview is even more important now, to get out there, get the message out there, because this just doesn't affect the women living with disabilities. It affects their families, their
Yes.
mothers, their carers, and they're within the community, so they can have a much more fulfilled life.
Exactly.
Well, Dr. Deirdre Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy practice as a doctor. You must be inundated to come on and speak to Confident Women Ireland today, because I know that we'll be having you on speed dial going forward in 2024. And let's make this a campaign now, starting on Confident Women Ireland and throughout. Once you get one person talking about it, everyone talks about it. It's like a pebble in the pond.
Absolutely. Thanks, Roisin, for having me.
More than welcome. Dr. Deirdre Forde, before we go, how can we get people to contact you?
You can email info@Céile Medical, CEILE, ceilemedical.ie, or you can call the clinic 090 647 9748.
And Dr. Deirdre Forde, what I will do is I will put all that information in the description box below.
Thank you.
Thank you so much indeed.
Thanks, Roisin.